Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And in honor of Easter, I am doing a review for a movie that, at least for my childhood, kept showing up on public television during that time. And I'm going to do the 1978 film Watership Down. Here is your trivia question for today. What language that is rarely used in the film, but more in the book series, do the rabbits speak? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, our film starts off with a bit of a fable that explains where the beasts of our world came from and why their relationship is the way it is with rabbits. We then jump ahead to what is considered present time as we look in on a bunch of rabbits, but even more specifically at two rabbits, a pair of brothers named Hazel and Fiver. Now, Fiver has a special ability. He seems to get premonitions, and recently he just got one that seems to allude to something terrible happening to everyone at his warren. So Hazel and Fiver try to notify their chief of the impending doom, but he just waves it off as if it's nothing. So in the middle of the night, the two brothers do manage to convince others to join them in escaping from the warren, and it looks like it was just the right time, as something truly terrible is about to occur to everyone else that stayed. We then observe the arduous journey that these rabbits will take on as they try to find a new and safe home. We also watch as they deal with dangerous traps, dogs, cats, and even fellow rabbits. So, will our adventurers ever find that new and perfect home? The movie was originally directed by John Hubley, but one of the producers decided they did not like his animation style, so they let him go. Some of that animation did still make it into the movie, including the opening sequence. Unfortunately, Hubley passed away before the movie was released. Martin Rosen would be the director to take over from John Hubley. This was also his directorial debut. The movie is based off of the book of the same name, written by Richard Adams. Now, Adams actually originally would tell this story to his children, and they loved it, and they actually convinced him into making it into a book. One of the things Adams originally had in the story was that during the fight between Bigwig and Woundwort, that Bigwig was going to perish. Now, his kids wouldn't stand for that, so he ended up changing it. This movie is considered by many to be the most violent PG animated movie ever made. It was, in fact, the first animated movie to ever be presented in Dolby Stereo in theaters. The movie was originally supposed to release in August of '78. However, due to the popularity of Grease, this caused the release to be delayed by 2 months due to a shortage of available screens. Real rabbits were actually brought into the studio for the animators to study, and in my opinion, you can really tell that they did a lot of studying. Most locations that you see in the animated film were actually based off of real existing places, quite a few of which were located in Hampshire, England. There were even certain backgrounds and locations that matched the diagrams from the original book. Bright Eyes was one of three songs that Mike Batt actually submitted for the movie. This was the only one that was chosen, and it was sung by Art Garfunkel. Kihar, one of my favorite characters from this film, was voiced by Zero Mostel. Zero unfortunately passed away before the film's release, making this his last movie. There have actually been two attempts to turn Watership Down into a television series. There was one in 1999 made by the BBC, where they actually got John Hurt, who did the voice of Hazel in the film, to do the voice of General Woundwort, and Richard Briers, who did the voice of Fiver, to do the voice of a completely new character called Captain Broom. Then, in 2018, there was an attempt by Netflix to do a television series where it was James McAvoy and Nicholas Hoult as Hazel and Fiver. There is a band out there named Fall of Ephrafa, which is named after the Warren from the film. There's also a band named Trick or Treat that has an album called Rabbit's Hill, which is just a retelling of the story of Watership Down done throughout the album. Before being adapted into an animated movie, there was thoughts of converting the story of Watership Down into an opera or a ballet. So when it comes to the film Watership Down, I think this is an amazing movie. It's one that I wouldn't consider a children's film, but I do think it's a movie that everybody should check out at least once in their life. In my opinion, it still stands up to this day because it is pretty timeless. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. And if you did really enjoy this movie, you've got lots of options if you want to check out some other things related to it. There, of course, are the two books in the series. There's the two television series that I mentioned earlier. I don't know if anyone out there is still performing this, but in 2016, there was a stage production created for it. There are two role playing games based off of it, Bunnies and Burrows and The Warren. And speaking of role playing games, Dimension 20 did a live play season called Burrow's End, which is not specifically Watership Down, but is very thematically close to it. And finally, not a video game for the series Watership Down, but apparently inspired by it, Lappin'. And if you're looking for other film recommendations that are similar to this one, I would suggest The Plague Dogs, The Secret of Nim, The Last Unicorn, and Charlotte's Web. Now, time for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. What language that is rarely used in the film, but more in the book series, do the rabbits speak? The language is called Lepine, and you do hear it a few times in the film. For instance, Ephrafa and Harududu. However, when the rabbits are speaking to other creatures and they speak back, this language is apparently called hedgerow. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.